What if I told you the most powerful man in America was nearly killed in a small town no one talks about? One bullet came inches from changing the course of history. A firefighter died protecting strangers. A journalist stood just 4 feet away and kept reporting through the chaos. This is not just a story about a shooting. This is the untold story of a town, a system that failed, and a country at a breaking point. This is Butler, and what happened here changed everything. If this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and share it. Let's start. Section 1. The day of the rally. What really happened? It was a quiet day in Butler, Pennsylvania. The kind of day that felt normal, simple, peaceful. Families came out early. There were smiles. There were flags. There was music. People were happy. They were here for a reason. To see Donald Trump. To hear him speak. Some wore red hats. Others held up signs. Mothers held their children close. Old veterans stood proudly. Teenagers waved flags. The crowd was full of energy. The sun was shining. The stage was ready. Security was in place. At least it looked that way. No one knew that history was about to change. At the center of it all was Salena Zito, a journalist. She had covered America's Heartland for years. She understood these people. She respected them. And she was there only 4 feet from the stage. Trump took the stage. The crowd roared. People clapped. Phones came out. Everyone wanted to capture the moment. But then it happened. A loud crack. Then another. Then chaos. Shots. Screams. Silence. At first, people were confused. Some thought it was fireworks. Others thought it was a sound glitch. But Salena knew. In her gut, she knew. Something was wrong. She looked at Trump. His face changed. He ducked. Secret Service agents rushed in. One bullet hit him. It grazed his ear. Blood began to run down his cheek. Panic filled the air. People screamed. Some hit the ground. Others ran. And one man, Comperatore, stood still. He covered his family. He faced the gunfire. And he gave his life. A volunteer firefighter. A father. A hero. He died saving others. The shooter was high above, hiding in a nearby building, a roof, unsecured, unwatched. He had a clear view. He had time. He had a plan. And no one saw him until it was too late. The Secret Service missed it. The spotters missed it. Local law enforcement was not ready. How could this happen? That is what the world asked. How, in 2024, could the former president of the United States be nearly killed in plain sight? This was not a war zone. It was a rally in a small town, in a peaceful place. But now, Butler was on every screen, every headline, every heart. Zito did not leave. She kept reporting, her voice calm, her face pale, her heart racing, but her hands steady. She knew this was bigger than news. This was a moment, a wound, a warning. Trump was rushed away. Medical help came fast. He lived. Barely. His face was marked, but he stood tall, and he raised his fist, a symbol of survival, of strength, of something more. But under the surface, everything had changed. People began to question. Was this a failure of security? Was this a sign of deeper anger? Was this the moment America would finally wake up? The FBI came. Investigations started. The shooter was identified. Motives were explored. The country watched. The country held its breath. And in Butler, people cried. They lit candles. They laid flowers. They held each other. Because this was not just a rally. This was not just politics. This was real. This was human. Lives were changed. One was lost. Millions were shaken. And Salena Zito, still standing in the same spot, began writing the story that would become this book. She did not just report facts. She wrote what it felt like. She captured the silence after the shots. She described the fear, the courage, the grief. She gave us something more than news. She gave us the truth. And here is that truth. America is fragile, even in small towns, even on sunny days. No place is untouched. No leader is untouchable. No crowd is fully safe. But still people came. People believed. People stood in the light. And that matters. The day of the rally was supposed to be simple. Just another speech. Just another stop. But it became something else. Something unforgettable. It became a day when America held its breath. When fear walked in, but bravery stood taller. It became the moment when Butler, Pennsylvania, taught the world that even in the quietest places, the storm can come, but so can courage, so can unity, so can light. And this is only the beginning of that story. Section 2. Who is Salena Zito and why her view matters? Salena Zito is not just a reporter. She is a voice, a witness, a bridge between two Americas. She does not work from a studio. She does not chase breaking news from a desk. She travels. She listens. She asks. She stays. For years, she has walked the roads most people ignore. The small towns, the rural counties, the places far from big cities, but full of big hearts. Butler is one of those places, and Salena knew it well. She had been there before. She understood the people. She respected their lives, their struggles, their values. She once wrote, "The people in small towns whisper the future." And she was right. In 2016, while most reporters laughed at the idea of Trump winning, Salena saw something others didn't. She saw the quiet support, the deep loyalty, the anger behind the smiles. She wrote about it. People listened, and she became known as the reporter who saw Trump's rise before anyone else. But she was not chasing fame. She was chasing the truth. And on July 13th, 2024, she found herself 4 feet from the biggest story of her life. She came to Butler that day to do what she always did. Listen, watch, understand. She did not expect gunfire. She did not expect blood. She did not expect to look into Trump's eyes and see shock and pain and something deeper. A man who had just survived death. Salena did not run. She did not freeze. She did what she was born to do. She started writing. In her notebook, in her heart, in her memory. She recorded everything. The screams, the silence, the chaos, the courage. She was not just reporting a story. She was living it. And because she was so close, her view matters. She saw what cameras missed. She heard the crowd. She saw the faces. She felt the fear in real time. And when it was over, she stayed in Butler. She went to the candlelight vigils. She met with families. She talked to first responders. She stood at the memorial for Comperatore. She asked questions. She did not assume. She listened. That is what makes her different. Most reporters come in after the event. They look around, take notes, and leave. Salena Zito stays. And when she writes, you feel it. She does not just tell you what happened. She tells you what it meant. That is why this book matters. It is not just facts. It is feeling. It is human. It is raw. She spoke with Trump in the days that followed. He trusted her, not because she praises him, but because she listens. She asked what he felt. When he saw the blood, when he heard the shots, when he realized he could have died, she asked what changed in him after Butler, and he answered. That access, that honesty, that detail, it makes this story different. We get to see not just the event, but the heart behind it. Salena also asked the hard questions. How did the Secret Service fail? Why was the shooter not seen? Who gave the warning signs? Who ignored them? She asked what Butler meant, not just for Trump, but for the country. And what she found was stunning. People in Butler did not just feel scared. They felt forgotten. They felt angry. They felt proud. All at the same time. They mourned the violence, but they stood firm in their beliefs. They believed the attack was not just on a man, but on their way of life. Salena captured that. She told the story of a town that stood at the center of a national storm, and she told it with care. This is why her voice matters. She does not speak over people. She speaks with them. She does not mock. She does not label. She reflects. And because she understands the Heartland, she can help the rest of the world understand it too. So when she writes about Butler, she is not just telling us what happened. She is telling us what America is feeling. The fear, the division, the pride, the pain, and the questions. What happens now? Can we trust our leaders to protect us? Can we protect each other? Can a small town still matter in a big world? Salena Zito believes it can, and her book is proof. She writes with empathy, with detail, with truth. And because she was there, because she saw it all, we can trust her story. In a world full of noise, her words bring clarity. And as the story of Butler unfolds, it is her voice that leads us through it. Section 3. The shots fired. A moment that changed everything. It was supposed to be a simple day. A rally. A speech. A moment of energy and hope for supporters. But in just a few seconds, everything changed. Donald Trump stood on stage, looking into the crowd. He smiled. He spoke. He raised his hands to the cheers. The crowd was loud. The flags were waving. People were recording on their phones. Then it happened. A loud sound cut through the air. A sharp, cracking noise. One shot, then another, then another. People froze. The music stopped. Time felt like it slowed down. Some thought it was fireworks. Others thought a sound system had failed. But then they saw the blood. A thin line of red ran down Trump's ear. His face was shocked. His body flinched. His hand reached up. Then he ducked. Secret Service agents jumped. They surrounded him. They moved fast. They pushed him down. The crowd started to scream. People ran. People ducked. Others stood still, too shocked to move. Some hid behind chairs. Others dropped to the ground. Mothers held their children close. Men shouted for cover. Everything was confusion. But then a man stood still. Comperatore, a volunteer firefighter, a husband, a father, a hero. He threw himself over his family. He did not run. He protected them. And he took the bullet. He died on the ground, saving the ones he loved. The shooter was above, on a nearby rooftop. He had height. He had time. He had a view, and no one saw him. There were no alerts, no spotters, no warning. He had his target. He took his shots, and, for a moment, he nearly changed history. But the worst was prevented, just barely. The bullet hit Trump's ear. It could have been his head. It could have been fatal. It was not, but it was close. Salena Zito saw it all. She stood only 4 feet from the stage. She saw the blood. She heard the shouts. She felt the ground shake under her feet. She saw the agents move. She held her pen tight. Her hand trembled, but she did not stop. She watched. She listened. She recorded. She knew this moment was unlike any other, and she knew the world would need to understand it. From the ground, Trump rose. Agents lifted him. His face was bloody, but he lifted his fist. He looked at the crowd. It was a signal. I'm okay. I'm alive. I'm still standing. And the crowd roared back. Tears fell. People hugged. Some prayed. Others stood in shock. But one thing was clear. This was not just a political attack. This was an attack on something bigger. It was a shot at democracy, at stability, at peace, at hope. And yet the response was full of courage. Secret Service whisked Trump away. First aid came quickly. The shooter was identified. The building was secured. But questions remained. Why was the rooftop not secured? Why were no eyes on it? Why did this happen in broad daylight, in front of thousands? Were there warnings? Were they ignored? Salena started asking. The FBI began investigating. Trump's team went silent, then strategic. They knew this was bigger than one rally, one bullet, one event. This was history, and it happened in a small town called Butler, a place most people could not find on a map, a place where people believe in faith, family, and country, a place that became the center of a storm. The bullets may have lasted only seconds, but the impact would be felt for years. There was pain, there was loss, but there was also strength. Corey's name was remembered. Flowers were left. Candles were lit. Strangers hugged each other, as if they had known each other forever. And Donald Trump, blood still drying on his face, walked back into the light, a different man. This was not just a near miss. This was a signal. The country is divided. Anger is real. Violence is possible, even in places we think are safe. But this day was also a lesson about heroism, about survival, about how fast life can change. And it was just the beginning, because from this moment on, everything would be different. Section 4, Corey Comperatore, the unsung hero who gave everything. Corey Comperatore was not a famous man. He did not live on the front page. He did not ask for attention. He simply lived to serve, to protect, to love his family. Corey was a firefighter, a volunteer, a man who said yes when others looked away. He didn't wear a cape. He wore courage in his work, in his faith, and most of all, in the way he lived. On July 13th, 2024, Corey was at the Trump rally with his wife and daughter. They stood among hundreds of others, laughing, listening, waiting to see the former president speak. Corey was just another face in the crowd, another father, another neighbor, another patriot. But then the shots rang out. People screamed. Some ran. Some fell. And Corey didn't move. In the chaos, he saw danger. He saw fear in his family's eyes. And, without hesitation, he stepped in front of them. He became a shield, not with armor, not with weapons, but with his own body. He didn't think about it. He didn't need to. His instincts took over. Protect first. Always. And that choice, that split-second decision, cost him his life. The bullet struck him, right there in the crowd, amid the noise, the screams, the flags, the fear. He fell. His wife held him. His daughter cried. And the crowd around them finally saw what real sacrifice looks like. Corey died a hero, but he did not die for attention. He died for love, for duty, for his family. His story could have been forgotten. Just another line in the news. Just another victim in a moment too big, too political, too fast. But it wasn't, because the people who knew Corey spoke up. They shared who he was. They reminded us that this man was not just a headline. He was a father. He was a coach. He helped his neighbors. He showed up when others didn't. He was the guy who fixed your brakes and asked how your mom was doing. He was the man who stayed behind to help clean after everyone left. In a world that often celebrates loud voices, Corey lived quietly but powerfully. And when the moment came, when the danger appeared, he did what quiet heroes do. He stood up. He stepped forward. He gave everything. At his memorial, there were no crowds shouting. There were no cameras flashing. There were tears. There were prayers. There were stories of kindness, of service, of selflessness. And there was silence, a silence that said more than any words could, because sometimes the strongest people say the least, and sometimes the ones who change the world are the ones who never tried to. Corey's sacrifice reminds us of what real strength looks like. It is not in power. It is not in politics. It is not in how many people know your name. It is in how you treat the people you love, how you protect them, how you live your values. When it matters most, his story is painful, but it is also sacred, because in that terrible moment, he showed us what courage is. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is moving forward in the middle of it. Courage is putting someone else first, even when it costs you everything. Corey's name now lives on in the hearts of everyone who heard what he did. He may not have planned to be a hero that day, but heroes don't usually plan. They just act, because they cannot do anything else. His loss was heavy. His family's grief is real, and the country owes them more than words. We owe them gratitude. We owe them respect. And we owe Corey a promise to remember, a promise to protect others like he did, a promise to never take a single breath for granted. Because people like Corey remind us what truly matters. Not fame, not fortune, but love and sacrifice and honor. So if you take one thing from his story, let it be this. Heroes still walk among us, and sometimes they look just like our neighbors. They wear t-shirts. They coach Little League. They hold their daughters' hands. And when the world turns dark, they light the way. Corey Comperatore did not survive that day, but his legacy will, because every person who remembers his name carries forward a piece of his courage, and courage like that never truly dies. Section 5. Inside Trump's mind, his private reflections after the shooting. After the shots were fired, after the blood ran down his face, after the crowd screamed and scattered, Donald Trump was silent. He had survived, but something had changed, not just on the outside, but inside. The man who had stood on 1,000 stages was now standing face to face with death, And for the first time in a long time, he paused. The bullet had grazed his ear. It had missed his head by inches. But in those inches, the whole world shifted. In the days after the attempt, he kept mostly quiet. Few interviews, few statements. But there was one person he chose to speak with, Salena Zito. He trusted her, not because she always agreed with him, but because she always listened, because she asked honest questions. And when she sat down with him, he was different, calmer, still, measured. This was not the Trump from the rallies. This was not the loud voice or the fast hands. This was a man who had looked death in the eye and survived. He told her he felt lucky. Then he paused and said, no, he felt chosen. That word stayed with her. Chosen, not lucky to be alive, but meant to be alive. He believed there was purpose in what happened, that surviving that day was not just about safety. It was about meaning. He said, I've had hard days, but that moment, that bullet, that was something else. That was real. He spoke about Comperatore, and his voice got soft. He said, a man gave his life to protect the people he loved. That's the kind of courage that humbles you. He paused again, then said, I was the one being targeted, but he's the one who's gone. That stays with you. For a man often seen as unshakable, this moment shook him, but not into fear, into focus. He talked about the country, about the division, about the anger he had seen grow. And he said, if they can try to kill me in Butler, in the middle of a peaceful rally, what does that say about where we are? It wasn't just a political line. It was a real question, spoken slowly, with concern. He said he thought about his family, about Melania, about Baron, about the people who would have lost him. And for a brief moment, he let down the wall. He admitted that he was afraid, not for himself, but for the people who believed in him, the people who were watching. He knew that if he had died that day, the country would have burned, not just in sadness, but in rage. And he didn't want that. He said, we've got to stop hating each other. We've got to start listening again. It was a softer voice, not weak, but real. He talked about faith, about prayer. He said, I prayed that night, and I haven't stopped. He didn't try to spin the event. He didn't try to turn it into a campaign slogan. In that room with Salena, he was not a candidate, not a brand, not a symbol. He was a man, a survivor, trying to make sense of what happened. And when she asked what changed most in him, he said, I'm not wasting time anymore, not 1 minute. He said his mission was clearer, that the bullet reminded him how fast it can all be gone, and that now he would speak more directly, more honestly, more often from the heart. He said, I know people think I'm tough, but surviving that day, it gave me a kind of peace. Peace, a strange word from a man known for battles. But in that moment, it made sense. He had faced something bigger than politics, bigger than any opponent. He had faced death and lived, not just lived, but walked away with new purpose. Some people may never believe he changed. Others will say he used the moment for power. But Salena Zito saw something different. She saw a man who had been touched by something real. She saw the fear behind the eyes, the weight in his voice, the pause before each word. This was not a show. This was not a performance. It was personal. Because when you come that close to losing your life, you see what really matters. Trump said he now looks at people differently. He said he listens more. He notices the quiet ones, the ones in the back, the ones like Corey. He said, I don't just see crowds anymore. I see people. And that may be the greatest change of all. Not in policy, not in speech, but in vision. He now knows what it feels like to be seconds from the end. And because of that, he speaks now with more weight. You may agree with him. You may not. But what happened in Butler left a mark on him. A scar, yes, but also a reminder that life is fragile, and every word, every moment, every life matters. Section 6, the Secret Service breakdown. A system that failed. The Secret Service is trained to protect. Their job is to stop danger before it happens. They plan. They prepare. They are always watching. But on July 13th, 2024, they failed. It happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, a peaceful town, a campaign, rally, a sunny day, no warning signs. Or so it seemed. The shooter was on the roof of a nearby building, the AGR building. He had a perfect view of the stage. He had time. He had position. He had a rifle. And no one saw him. That should never happen. Not with a former president. Not with that many people. Not with trained security teams. So what went wrong? Let's start at the top. The AGR building was tall. It overlooked the rally site. It had windows, a clear rooftop, a direct line to Trump. But no one secured it. No spotter was posted there. No officer was stationed. No agent double-checked it. And yet, the shooter made it to the roof. He brought a weapon. He aimed. He fired. 3 shots. 1 hit Trump. 1 killed Corey Comperatore. Another narrowly missed a member of the crowd. This was not a random act. It was a planned attack. And somehow, the system that was supposed to prevent this failed. After the incident, questions came fast. Why was the building unsecured? Who signed off on the plan? Were there warnings? Why did no one act? The Secret Service launched an internal review, and what they found was shocking. There were blind spots. There were gaps in communication. There was confusion over roles. Too many teams. Not enough coordination. It wasn't just one person's mistake. It was a breakdown. Across the board, multiple agents were suspended. Leadership was called into question. Heads rolled. Careers ended. The public wanted answers, and they had a right to ask. This was not just about Donald Trump. It was about trust, about security, about safety for all public figures. If the Secret Service could miss this, what else could they miss? Some blamed underfunding. Others blamed politics. Some said the team had become too relaxed, too confident, too used to routine. But the truth is simple. They underestimated the risk. They didn't think it could happen. Not in Butler. Not in a small town. Not in daylight. Not on American soil. But it did. And now the country had to face it. News reports uncovered more. Internal memos. Warnings that were ignored. Tips that went unread. Requests for more surveillance that were denied. The mistakes were not just in the field. They started long before the rally. Planning was rushed. Maps were incomplete. Buildings were overlooked. And in the middle of that failure, a man with a gun slipped through. He took his place. He waited. And when the time came, he pulled the trigger. It was a quiet failure until it was loud. And now people were dead. A former president was wounded. The nation was shaken. Salena Zito covered every detail. She spoke with insiders. She read the reports. She sat down with security experts. They all said the same thing. This never should have happened. And yet it did. Because the system trusted itself too much. Because people thought small towns were safe. Because no one imagined a rooftop could become a weapon. The aftermath was swift. Investigations, reviews, policy changes. New training was ordered. New rules were written. The Secret Service tried to repair its image, but the damage was done. Public trust was hurt, not just in the service, but in the idea of safety. If a man like Trump could be shot in a peaceful place with full protection, what did that mean for anyone else? This was bigger than one agency. It was a lesson, a warning. That danger is real, that evil can hide anywhere, and that protection must be more than just presence. It must be smart. It must be alert. It must never assume. Because the world has changed, threats have evolved, and the people we trust to protect must evolve too. Trump's team demanded answers. So did the public. And slowly those answers came. But no answer could undo the damage, or bring back Corey, or erase the fear from that crowd. The truth remained. The system failed. It left a gap, and someone stepped through it. Now the question is, what will we do with that truth? Will we fix the gaps, or forget them? Will we prepare better, or make the same mistakes again? Because next time, the outcome might not be survival. This is not about politics, not about left or right. It is about safety. It is about life. It is about making sure this never happens again. And for the Secret Service, it is a moment of reckoning, because protection is not just a duty. It is a promise. And that promise was broken. Section 7. What Butler, Pennsylvania tells us about the Heartland. Butler, Pennsylvania. A small town. A quiet place. Not famous. Not flashy. Just honest. Just real. It sits in western Pennsylvania, surrounded by farms, factories, hills and fields, hard work and tradition. People here wake up early. They go to church. They wave at neighbors. They shop local. They hold on to faith and family. Life in Butler isn't fast. It isn't loud. It's steady. It's simple. And for many, it's sacred. Butler is part of what people call the Heartland, Middle America, Working America, the backbone of the country. And yet, for years, many in places like Butler felt ignored. They felt Washington didn't hear them. The media didn't understand them. Big cities looked down on them. They were called flyover country, forgotten, but they never stopped caring. They never stopped hoping. And when someone finally spoke their language, they listened. That someone was Donald Trump. In 2016, he came to places like Butler. He didn't speak like other politicians. He didn't hide behind careful words. He spoke rough, but he spoke real. And people heard something they hadn't heard in years. Recognition. He talked about jobs, about borders, about faith, flags, and forgotten towns. He promised they would be seen again, that their voices mattered, that their way of life was not dead. And Butler believed him. They voted for him, not once, but twice. In rallies, they packed the fields. In streets, they waved the signs. They believed they were part of something bigger, a movement, a message. So when he came to Butler again in 2024, they showed up in the thousands, not just to hear a speech, but to say, "We're still here." They came with kids on their shoulders, with folding chairs and sandwiches, with shirts that read, "Save America," with hope in their eyes. This rally was not just about politics. It was about connection, about identity, about being seen again. And then the shots came, and everything changed. But even in that terror, in that fear, something else showed up too. Unity, strength, faith. People prayed in circles. Strangers held each other. Locals ran toward the hurt, not away. And in the days that followed, Butler did not collapse. It stood tall. They held vigils. They honored Corey. They supported each other. Because that's what the Heartland does. It bends, but it doesn't break. Salena Zito knew this. She had walked these streets for years. She had heard their stories. She understood their pride and their pain. She said Butler is not just a place. It's a symbol, a reminder of who we really are, under the noise, under the division, under the headlines. It's the kind of town where flags fly year-round, where kids play in the street, where people work with their hands and pray with their hearts. It's easy to forget towns like this, easy to write them off, until something big happens, until the cameras show up, until a bullet makes the world stop and look. But even then, Butler doesn't want fame. It just wants fairness, respect, a voice. The people of Butler don't think they're better. They just don't want to be forgotten. They want leaders who listen. They want truth, not spin. They want peace, not power. And maybe that's why Trump connected with them. Because whether you agree with him or not, he listened. He came. He looked them in the eye. He didn't talk down. He didn't walk away. He stood in the middle of the crowd. And he said, "You matter." After the shooting, many thought the people would stay home, be afraid. But they didn't. They came back. They stood together. They mourned. They rebuilt. And that's what Butler shows us. That courage lives in small places. That faith grows in quiet hearts. That even when the world moves fast, some people still know how to slow down and love what matters. In Butler, America saw a reflection of something real, something deep, something many thought was gone. But it's not gone. It's here, in every small town, in every farmer's hand, in every folded flag, in every volunteer who runs toward danger. Butler tells us that America's heart still beats, that there is still good, still strength, still hope. If we want to heal as a nation, maybe we need to look here, not just for stories, but for wisdom, because sometimes the quietest places have the loudest truths. Section 8, Why the Heartland Still Believes in Trump. The question has been asked again and again. Why do so many people in the Heartland still believe in Donald Trump? Even after all the controversy, even after the chaos, even after the fear? The answer is not simple, but it is deeply personal. For people in places like Butler, it is not only about politics. It is about trust. It is about being seen. It is about feeling like someone finally hears you. For decades, these communities were promised things, jobs, help, respect, but the promises were broken. Factories closed. Main streets went quiet. Young people left, and no one came to help. Leaders made speeches, but nothing changed until Trump. When he showed up in 2016, he spoke differently. He said what he thought, even if it was rough, even if it shocked people, but it felt honest. It felt real. He did not use fancy words. He did not pretend to be perfect. He said the system was broken, and they agreed. He did not talk like a politician. He talked like someone at the diner, like a neighbor, like someone who understood frustration. So they listened, and they believed. And now, even after everything, that belief has not died. In fact, for many, it has grown stronger. The rally in Butler proved it. Thousands came. They waited in the heat. They brought their children. They stood for hours, not just to hear him speak, but to show that they were still with him. And when the shots were fired and the blood appeared, they did not run away. They stood stronger, because now it felt personal. Someone had tried to take him away. Someone had tried to silence their voice. And instead of fear, they felt fire. After that day, many people said, "I will vote harder. I will speak louder. I will not be silent," because they saw more than a man wounded. They saw someone survive. And to them, that survival meant something. It meant their fight still had a chance. The Heartland is loyal. It does not follow trends. It follows truth. As they see it, as they feel it, and they feel that Trump speaks for them. He talks about things others avoid, about jobs, about faith, about the cost of groceries, about the drug crisis, about the border. These are not talking points to them. These are real-life problems. When they say they support Trump, they are not just supporting a person. They are supporting what he represents. To them, he is not a king. He is not perfect, but he is a fighter. And fighters are respected here, because life here is not always easy. You work hard. You get dirty. You earn what you have. They believe Trump does not quit. He gets back up. He keeps going. And they want to do the same. Salena Zito has spent years asking these voters, why? She sits with them. She listens. And the answers come down to this. He shows up. He listens. He never forgets them. And when the media mocks him, they feel mocked too. When he is attacked, they feel attacked. It is more than politics. It is personal. After the near assassination, that connection grew even deeper. He was hurt, but he raised his fist. He stood strong. That moment mattered. It reminded them of who they believe he is, someone who takes the hit and keeps moving forward. In small towns, respect is earned, not given. You do not have to be polished, but you have to be real. And for many in the Heartland, Trump is the realest thing politics has offered in decades. They know his flaws. They see his mistakes. But they also see something familiar. A man who speaks from the gut. A man who does not quit. They feel like he fights for them. And in return, they fight for him. People in Butler and towns like it are not moved by tweets. They are moved by action, by grit, by heart. And Trump, in their eyes, has all three. So when people ask, why do they still believe in him? The answer is simple. Because he showed up. Because he listened. Because he stayed. And because when the world turned against him, he turned back toward them. That kind of loyalty, you do not forget it. In the Heartland, belief is not given lightly, but once it is earned, it holds strong. And in 2024, that belief is not going anywhere. It was carved into the earth that day in Butler, written in the tears, etched in the silence after the gunshots, spoken in every handshake and prayer. The Heartland still believes, not just in Donald Trump, but in what he represents to them. A chance, a voice, a fight worth continuing. And for now, that is more than enough. Section 9, Media Reactions and Political Fallout. A Nation on Edge. The news spread fast. Within minutes, every major network broke the story. Trump shot at campaign rally. Gunman opens fire in Butler. Former president grazed by bullet. Photos of Trump with blood on his face flooded every screen. Headlines flashed. News alerts buzzed. The world stopped and watched. For many, it felt unreal, like something out of a movie, but it was real, and it had happened in broad daylight, on American soil. The media did not wait. They rushed to report. Some gave facts. Others gave opinions. Many jumped to conclusions. Some asked, was this a targeted political attack? Others asked, how did security fail this badly? And then the debate began. Some praised Trump's response. They said he looked strong, that his raised fist showed courage, that he would not be silenced. Others criticized the chaos. They blamed campaign staff. They blamed law enforcement. They blamed political rhetoric. But one thing was clear. The nation was shaken. The media's response was divided. News anchors argued. Social media exploded. People took sides. For Trump supporters, the moment felt like proof. Proof that the danger was real. Proof that the system was broken. Proof that the country was under attack, not just politically, but physically. They said, if they can come for him, they can come for anyone. Others called for calm, for unity, for peace. But unity did not come. The conversation turned ugly, fast. Some online voices cheered the attack. Others mocked it. Memes were shared. Hateful comments spread. And it showed just how deep the divide really was. Political leaders gave statements. Some were sincere. Some were political. Some called for investigation. Some used it to push agendas. Congress held emergency hearings. Questions were asked about security, about extremism, about rising threats to public figures. The Secret Service was in the spotlight. Critics asked how this could happen. Supporters said they needed more resources. Everyone wanted answers. And behind all of it, the 2024 election was approaching fast. For Trump, the shooting changed everything. He went from candidate to survivor, from politician to symbol. His supporters rallied harder. His critics became quieter. Some independent voters began to rethink their views. Because no matter what you believe, an assassination attempt is serious, and it shakes people awake. Salena Zito wrote about it all. She watched how the media reacted. She saw the split. She saw how some told the human story, while others just chased clicks. She saw the pain in Butler, the heartbreak in Corey's family, the fear in everyday people. And she asked, where was that in the coverage? Because much of the media missed it. They talked about Trump, about strategy, about polling, but they forgot the people. They forgot the woman who lost her husband, the child who saw her father die, the crowd that stood in shock, the small town that would never be the same. The fallout was more than political. It was emotional. It was personal. It changed the national mood. Some Americans said, we cannot keep living like this. Others said, this is what happens when hate wins. But the question remained, would this moment bring us together or tear us further apart? Unfortunately, the signs were mixed. Social media stayed loud. Cable news stayed divided. Politicians blamed each other. And the truth was buried under noise. But people in towns like Butler saw something else. They saw how fast life can change. They saw how politics has become something dangerous, not just in words, but in action. They saw how a rally can become a crime scene, how a community can become a headline, and it left a mark. On them, on the country, on history. The media did what it always does. Some tried to help, others used the story. But through it all, one thing became clear. The country is on edge. People are tired. They are angry. They are scared. And moments like this only add fuel to the fire. So what comes next? Will we take the lessons seriously? Will we protect each other better? Will we listen more? Speak with care? Or will we keep shouting? Until something worse happens, the political fallout is still unfolding. Trump's campaign gained new momentum, but the nation lost something too. A sense of safety, a sense of peace, a belief that our leaders are always protected, and that loss may be harder to heal. This moment, this shooting, was not just about one man. It was about all of us, and how we respond will shape what comes next. Section 10. 1 year later, what has changed? 1 year has passed since the rally, since the shots, since the fear. Butler is quieter now. The streets are calm. The signs are gone, but the memory remains. People still talk about that day, where they were standing, what they saw, what they felt. Some say they still hear the sound, the sharp crack of a bullet. Others remember the silence that followed, the kind that feels too heavy. 1 year later, the town still carries it. The field where the rally was held now feels different. It is not just grass anymore. It is sacred ground. A small memorial honors Comperatore. Fresh flowers appear every week. People still stop and pray, even strangers. Corey's family has tried to heal, but healing does not mean forgetting. His wife often says, his bravery lives on in our daughter. She still wears his badge, still tells his story, still cries when no one is looking. And the town, it has become stronger, not by choice, but by necessity. Neighbors check on each other more. Church pews are a little fuller. People speak a little softer, with more care, with more meaning. Across the country, things have shifted. Security at political events is tighter. Rooftops are no longer ignored. Officers are trained differently. Spotters are more alert. Plans are reviewed twice. Then again, the Secret Service made changes. Some leaders resigned. Others were replaced. It was not just about blame. It was about never letting this happen again. But not everything has improved. The nation is still divided. Politics is still loud. Online hate is still growing. And fear? Fear is still here. Some Americans no longer feel safe at rallies. Others carry hidden panic in public spaces. And many wonder, what happens if it happens again? Donald Trump is still running, stronger than ever. The incident gave him more support, more fire, more focus. He still speaks about Butler. He says the town changed him. And maybe it did. He seems slower now in some moments, more serious, more aware. He still throws punches, still challenges the media, still fights his way forward. But every once in a while, he touches his ear, as if remembering, 1 year later, we have answers, but we also have questions. Why did it take tragedy to make us see the cracks? Why did it take blood to get our attention? Have we learned? Have we grown? Some say yes, that we are more careful, more united, more awake. Others say no, that nothing really changes, that we forget too quickly. But one thing is true. The story of Butler is not just a story of a shooting. It is a story of a town that stood still and stood tall. It is a story of a man who survived and a man who gave everything, It is the story of silence that echoed across the country, and that echo is still ringing. It reminds us that peace is fragile, that anger is dangerous, that courage still exists, that heroes are real, and that even in the smallest towns, history can knock on your door when you least expect it. Final outro. This was the story of Butler, not just the town, but what it revealed about America, its wounds, its strength, its heart. 1 year later, we are still feeling it. So the question is not just what happened that day. The question is, what will we do with it now? Because the next chapter, that one is up to us. If this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and share it. Let it reach someone who needs to hear it, someone looking for answers, someone holding onto hope. Let them know they are not alone. This is not just history. This is a mirror. And in that mirror, we all have a part to play. Thank you for listening. Stay safe, stay kind, and never stop searching for the truth, even when it hides in silence.